Everyone. This is Varun from the Cisco Wireless Tech team, and I'm going to talk about wireless client connectivity with ACS 5.x. Most of you have noticed that most of the Cisco customers are moving from ACS 4.x to 5.x. It's definitely much more easier to handle, to use. It's just a simple user graphic ways to go from top to bottom. So here I have the ACS 5.x, and I have my 5508 controller, and I'm going to use my own laptop. I have it connected through wired, so I'm going to use the wireless connectivity for it. So to begin with, let's go ahead and create a new WLAN for which we'll test the client connectivity using EEP. For that matter, let's call it EEP-Test. Let's enable it. And before we do that, we need to add the radius server, which is the ACS. So if you see, we have the IP address as 10.106.127.13. So I'm going to add that radius server here. You can go to Security, Radius, Authentication, New, 10.106.127.13. Add the shared secret. Just make sure you add the same shared secret in the ACS side as well. You can leave the rest of the settings as default for Cisco ACS. We can also add the accounting part. Use the same thing, 10.106. All right, so we're done with this. Now moving back to EEP-Test, what we created. Make sure you have .1x as the auth key management, layer 2 security, and we need to map the AAA server what we created. So you can go here, you would see 10.106.127.13, both under authentication as well as accounting. Go ahead and map it, and you can leave the rest of it as default. So that's all we need to do from the wireless controller side. Moving to ACS, Cisco Secure ACS. Okay, so as I mentioned before, we need to go from top to bottom. So we will go step by step for the config for the wireless clients. So let's go to Network Resources. Here you will see a lot of options. You can map, for example, if you go to location, like I have here as remote and WLC38, you can actually map all the controllers. You can group all the controllers based on a specific location. For example, your DMZ, your inside, and same as that, you can use the device type. You can add maybe the wireless controllers as one group, the autonomous access points as one group, wireless controller 5500s as one group, 4400s as one group, and so on. So you can use those settings. For now, to keep it simple and safe, I'm not using any of those. So I'll straight away go to Network Device and AAA Clients and create a new one. I have my username as this 5508-4. I need to add it here. You can add anything in the description. And remember, whatever location and device type you created, you need to, in case you need to map to a specific device, here in these two checkboxes is where you define that. Let's add my IP address of the controller. And in 4.x, this was not the case that whenever you add a device, you can add both the TechAx and radius plus shared secret. So here you can add both the shared secrets. I created as Cisco, so I'm just going to use that. It's a lot easy because you can add both the TechAx plus and radius shared secret under one page. Submit here. Next, we move to users and identity stores. Here again, you can create the identity groups based on your requirement. For example, you can also use ACS for WLC login, where you can provide the admin rights. You can also provide the user rights. We also can map to the lobby admin. So again, I'm going to keep it simple. Just go to users to create an internal user. Let's say I created Cisco EEP, and in case you create an identity group, you need to map it here. Otherwise, leave it as default, which is all groups. Create a password. I'm just going to use the same password, Cisco EEP. Moving on to the next, we move to policy elements. Since we are using radius in this video, we need to play around with network access and authorization profiles. In case we would have used TechAx, we need to play around with the shell profile. We need to create a shell profile and define the command sets. So I'll go to authorization profiles. You can either use the default, which is the permanent access, or we can actually duplicate it. and name it for our sake, WLC 5500 client. You can map the VLAN, you can send the VLAN and the ACLs, the downloadable ACLs, and all these are provided here. Now, moving on to access policies. Again, here also we have the differentiation between the TechAx Plus and the Radius. Here we have default device admin as the TechAx, which is used for TechAx, and default network access, which is used for the Radius. So going to default network access, if you go to allowed protocols, here you would see the list of protocols, EEP flavors, which you can actually define. It depends on your requirement. In case you do not want to, for example, you do not want to use EFast, that's fine. Go ahead and do that. Uncheck that. In the identity, you can actually define the internal users. In case you're mapping it to Active Directory, you need to change that and map it to external users. Under the advanced options, you can actually define if authentication is failed, if user is not found, or if process has failed. What all actions do you want to take? Moving on to authorization, here you create the rule. Here you create the rule for which is in which you map the policy elements, and in case you have used the identity groups or you've grouped the devices using the location, you can actually customize over here. You can add whatever you want. The location, device type, identity group, you can uncheck them or you can select them based on your requirement. Let's delete this one and create a new rule. Let's call it WLC client. And if I just select permit access or WLC 5500 client, I will not be allowed to because I need to configure at least one of these conditions. Since I haven't used any of these, just go ahead and use identity group or maybe location and map it all. For example, I go to identity groups and map all groups. Hit OK, my rule is created. Save changes. And that's done. That's all we have from the ACS side. One more thing what we can check on that is in case you have, right now we just have default device admin and default network access, which are the default access policies for the TechAx Plus and the Radius. So if you go to service selection rules, we can actually create a new one. You can create these services, and in case you create, you need to map it here, which rule is applied first, or maybe the condition. Here again, you have the customize button where you need to group or maybe put the sequence of the rules what you have created. So let's get to the client now. As I mentioned before, I have the wide connectivity, so I'm going to use my Intel Processor Wireless for Windows 7. Turn the Wi-Fi on. So I see EEP Test. Before I actually connect, I'm going to use my, I have the console access to my controller as well. So I'm just going to start. Let me check my MAC address, and I'm going to start the debug to show what are the failed debugs and the fast debugs. Let's start the debug. Here is my MAC address, and we can actually look at monitor clients as well. All right, so I'll try to connect to EEP Test now. I need to make sure that you have the EEP flavors allowed on your drivers. Intel processor does allow all the Cisco EEP flavors. By default, Microsoft does not allow all the EEP flavors which Cisco ACS can use. So let's say I use EFast. I'm not going to use ACX. So I use Cisco EEP, what I created. I'm just going to save the logs by default so that we can have a look at them later. So I got connected to EEP Test. I'm just gonna stop this debug. All right, I have the file saved, named as pass. We'll have a look at it later. So let's go ahead and tweak around, look at the ACS first, or maybe tweak around the settings of the ACS, and then we'll have a look at the pass and the fail debugs. Now, if I uncheck EPASS, which means EPASS is not allowed in the ACS, and then if I try to connect, let's see what happens. Do you see that? Problem connecting to EEP Test. All right, let's move to ACS first. In the ACS, you can check the logs under Monitoring and Reports, launch Monitoring and Report view. So here is the dashboard which opens. And since we are using Radius, so let's click on Authentication Radius today. All right, so do you see the Cisco EEP? If we click on the details for it, you can see all the logs, the Radius status, authentication succeeded. It did match the rule access service, the default network access, which we created, which was by default there. We just mapped our profile, the policy element to it. You can see EEP Fast, MS Chat version 2, Cisco EEP, the username. And now let's look at the failed login. You would see right in front here, authentication failed to negotiate EEP because EEP Fast not allowed an access service. We knew we purposely disabled EEP Fast just to see what we get in the ACS and maybe on the controller as the log, as the bad debug. So you can see on the ACS very clearly that this is what we get. EEP Fast was not allowed in the access service. So if we look at the failed logs on the controller, you would be able to see the access challenge, the handshake following. So we can see the access challenge packet going in, then EEP request, which is going in, then access reject, and then the client is removed because of the EEP failure, sending EEP failure. We can also see that, whereas we do not see that in the past debugs. So that's all we have for the client connectivity. It's not hard. It's very easy, just a simple setup. We just need to make sure all the config is correct and all the EEP flavors what we use are allowed. The correct policies are applied to the access policies what we create. And in case you mapped any devices, you grouped any devices, or if you're using identity groups, just make sure everything is correctly set in all the policies. Thanks for watching this video. Have a great day.